Hi, Amber. Thank you so much for coming on the Feel Good Social podcast, lady. I'm so excited to
Hello.
have you here.
Yes, I'm so excited to have such a good conversation today.
Yes. Oh, we are going to geek out about all things content repurposing, guys. It's going to be so great. I did already introduce you just a little bit in the intro. I'd love to hear from you. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you serve?
Yes. So, hi, everybody. My name is Amber Figlow, and I am a content strategist, and I like to focus on the systems, the organization, the workflows behind everything. I'm a type A Virgo, retired social media agency owner. So, I bring that structure that we sometimes need in content creation to something that is very, very creative. So that's what I do. And I primarily serve small business owners, those solo entrepreneurs that are also in a creative industry. So your photographers, your web designers, things like that. But I do like to help a little bit of everybody. But yeah, that's who I am, what I do, and who I do for.
Yeah, you are speaking our language, lady. Before we dive into all of your systems and structures and the simple way to do things, which I can't wait to hear, let's go ahead and just talk a little bit about how you got started doing what you do. What has your origin story looked like?
So we could really take this all the way back, and I won't bore everybody with every single detail, but I basically went to college right after the recession. So it was like 2010, started as a pre-med major, but I have always been very creative. I wanted to be a photographer, interior designer. Like I've always had this creativity, but I was like, you know what? I need some kind of stability in my career. So I decided to go pre-med. I took one chemistry class and said, absolutely not. So I was like, how can I have a stable career in something that will help me make money and also allow me to be creative? So I switched my major to marketing. And just to give context, of course, this was the 2010s when social media was new and social media marketing was not taught in my curriculum. So I am truly a self-taught queen. I have just gained all of the experience by being in the industry. I did the corporate America, the freelancing, the solo marketing manager, and I recently, as of this year, hit my 5th year of full-time entrepreneurship. It has been such a wild ride, but it was one of those things that over the last decade, throughout my 20s, it was a slow progression into entrepreneurship, which is something that we don't see now. A lot of people, which I absolutely love, are just jumping right into entrepreneurship. They're jumping into the freelance work. And I'm like, I wish I would have done that, but it took me a while to get here. So that's the natural progression into it. And I used to run a social media agency in the height of the pandemic and burned out so quickly. So I have decided to move away from that very heavy service-based style business. And now I like to serve small business owners through more so digital products and free content. That's what I do now.
Yes, the content repurposing queen.
Yes.
I love it. And I feel you with that, the burnout feeling and the journey of going through. And it's so needed too, right? Because so many people are starting businesses these days through the pandemic and still continuing. And it is so funny, just like that shock when they're like, I have this idea, I have a business, and now I have to market it. Wait, what does this look like? So let's talk about content repurposing and simplifying our processes, because I need that right now too. And I think a lot of people do.
Yes. So I typically, when I work with people, when I coach people, all the DMs that I have right now is everybody is feeling overwhelmed with creating content. And a lot of the times it starts with, I'm like, okay, what are we doing currently? Where are we sitting at? And a lot of people are just posting when they feel like it, posting in the moment. And the way I approach content is we need a bit of planning. And I know that the word batching is very scary, but we can make it simple. We need a little bit of batching and we need a little bit of repurposing. And these can be very strategic from a marketing perspective, but it's also going to give you your sanity back. And while it might feel weird and confusing at first, I promise you this is the gateway to unlocking no more overwhelm, no more burnout. And it's going to give you a system and approach to something that seems like it changes every day. Social media changes every day, content creation changes every day, but this is going to give you the system and approach.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the different ways that we can repurpose content these days, because definitely there's so many options and everyone's like, this can go to this. And then they get all tied up in, but wait, like I'm repeating myself too much, or like, how does this turn into this and all that different stuff? So what are some of your favorite ways to repurpose content across across platforms.
Yeah. So you said so many little key things in here that I talk to people day in and day out about. So the biggest thing that I hear, the biggest objection that I hear to repurposing is like, my audience is going to get sick of hearing me repeat things over and over again. And I really want to bust this myth because number one, as much as we love our followers, not every single one of them is seeing every single piece of content, except for maybe your mom and your super fans. Let's just be real about it. So they are more than likely not seeing that piece of content the first time around. And when you go to repurpose it, that might be the first time they're seeing that messaging. That might be the first time they're seeing that idea. Or let's say they initially saw it as a feed post and this time you're presenting it as a video and they like watching videos more. You're presenting it in a way that they like to consume as well. So want to bust that myth, number one. And then number two, we can approach this in so many different ways. My preferred content strategy, the way I approach it is I like to take long form content and break it down to short form content. And what this means, it could be a YouTube video, which is my preference. It could be a podcast like you're listening to right now. It could be an article, a blog post, but anything long form in nature that we can break down into smaller pieces. That takes some while to work up to. It takes a bit of time. So the one thing where I really want people to start with their repurposing journey, because it can feel overwhelming, I want you guys to start very small. We're going to take just a week of posts and come up with one idea for the week. Just one. I need one content idea and I want you to figure out how to present it in as many ways as possible. Maybe on Monday, it's a carousel. Maybe on Tuesday, it's a reel. Maybe Wednesday, it's an Instagram story that you eventually maybe repurpose that video over on TikTok or whatever that looks like. But just knowing how to take one idea and essentially multiply it. You can change the messaging a little bit. You can change the visual a little bit, but take it and spread it out as much as you can. And because this messaging, we are repeating ourselves, yes, but again, we're tapping into the way that people consume content. And also, we're business owners. We need our messaging to be consistent. We need to deliver it over and over again to help people buy from us. That is the ultimate goal here, is we want to make sure we're solidifying our values and our messaging and our mission statements. I could use all the marketing keywords, but that's what's really going to drive this repurposing.
Oh, yes. I love this so much. I definitely have felt this way back when I was an itty bitty entrepreneur too. Again and again, people will start trying this process and they'll be like, I don't know what to post about. I don't really have any ideas. And then you start breaking down these different categories in the way that you can take one idea and multiply it into different angles, different types of content. And all of a sudden you're like, I have way too many things I could talk about. You know?
Absolutely. That's the much better problem to have. I'm like, I would rather you have too much than not enough, and you will get there quicker than you think.
When it comes to showing up on different platforms and different types of content and stuff like that, is there any rules that you're noticing like this year? Like, can we put the same video on TikTok and Instagram and Pinterest and YouTube Shorts? Is there any like thing like that you've been noticing?
Yeah. So for me, I go against the grain here. I understand that there are different cultures, nuances, and shifts on these platforms. What might perform well on Instagram Reels might not perform for you on TikTok, and that is okay. I want you, when you first start this, and let's say you're wanting to repurpose content across different platforms, first and foremost, just use the same video. Post it everywhere. Get a baseline, and you're going to start to see what works and what doesn't. So start there. You don't have to spend all this time and energy really trying to make this one video so different on every single platform. Let's start with a small baseline. Then when you're noticing, okay, I've got the hang of this repurposing thing, I'm consistently posting on multiple platforms, then we can take it a step up. So this is the stage where I'm at. I am creating vast majority of my short form videos either in Descript or natively in TikTok. And there, I do repurpose it. Every single YouTube short, I do not adjust anything. That is just repurposed content. Now, where things might look a little different for me is, let's say I create a TikTok video natively in the app. I will download a version of it without text, without fonts, things like that. And then I can take that blank video, put it on Instagram and use font. That same video is over on TikTok with TikTok font. You can start to play around with it a bit. But when you're first getting started, just put it where it needs to go. Like literally literally take that video and put it where it needs to go. Where I want you to focus the efforts is as you're posting that content, optimizing it for the platform. You're going to want a bit longer of a caption for Instagram, typically. Whereas you might want a little bit shorter of a caption on TikTok and play around with the different settings that they have in there. YouTube Shorts, I recommend you use a scheduling tool so you can add tags, things like that. So more so in the back end is where I want you to optimize. But yeah, you can take that content and run with it on different platforms, even if it doesn't perform high on every single one.
Thank you for saying that, because that's where you open yourself up to the idea of creating content and stuff, but then you're like, okay, I have to do it all right away. They dive in going 60 miles an hour, and then they immediately have to be like the best at it and like the high level stuff, where it's no, I love that you're preaching start small, take the baby steps, and get used to it, right? It doesn't mean because you're starting at a slightly smaller or like lower-ish level, it doesn't mean that you can't like slowly start to add more pieces. That's how I've been approaching AI tools too, because you know, there's a lot of people in the AI industry that are like, AIify your entire life, you know, use all the tools. And there's like some shame and guilting and weird stuff happening there. And I'm like, no, guys, that is so overwhelming. Like one tool, one task, one day at a time. But anyway, I digress. I have been just like going off on all of these AI tangents. Like,
oh my gosh, same. I'm like, it's because it's being so introduced into our niche. It's like revolutionary every day. There's something new that pops up.
Something new. And so it's, really bringing it back down. And also too, adjusting your expectations, right? Because then people will get frustrated if they're like, well, it's not performing as good on Instagram as it is on TikTok or whatever it is. And I love how you said the YouTube Shorts. Yep. Girl, me too.
Yes.
I have these.
Exactly, because YouTube Shorts doesn't have its own culture yet, because a lot of people are still hesitant about YouTube Shorts. No, this is a long form video platform. I didn't want to watch shorts. Listen, I've had some shorts pop off though, and I'm like, that's fine by me. And whereas the differences in culture, it's a big conversation happening, and I see a lot of, I love them dearly, but sometimes they cause problems. A lot of influencers, and I use that word lightly, they'll be like, oh my God, Instagram is suppressing my views because this exact video got 1 million views on TikTok, or vice versa. They'll be like, I'm shadow banned on TikTok because this performed well on Reels. And I'm like, you guys don't understand there are cultural differences between the platforms. And it's okay if it didn't get you as many views. It's still helping your bottom line, and, you know, things that are a little bit more promotional, a little bit prettier, tend to perform better on Instagram. The minute you start selling on TikTok, your comment section, be careful. The trolls will come out. They're like, why are you trying to sell me a course? You're gatekeeping. Let me tell you what, it's 2 different cultures, and it's okay to just repurpose for now. It's not going to perform the best on everything, and that's okay.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Yeah, remembering the consumption cultures. And 2, I think that there's a conversation to be had about influencers and their influence on marketing tips and stuff that you're hearing. Influencers become a content creator, and that's a lot of the tips that you're hearing from people telling you how to market your business and show up online. And so, for an influencer, the numbers do matter a little bit more so for the brand deals and all that different stuff. But for a lot of my audience and a lot of solopreneurs, it's more about marketing our business. And that stuff doesn't quite matter as much. I always like to remind myself that, you know, like, I was listening to I bought an online course over the weekend. That's what it was. And I was like gardening and like consuming the course. And she was just like, okay, so she was talking about being invited to go speak on a stage at a conference live and being invited on someone's podcast as a podcast guest. And she's like, if you went to a conference and spoke to 100 people live in a room, like that would feel like such an honor. That would feel so worth it. You would spend the money to fly, to go stay in the hotel, all that different stuff. But if a podcast has 100 listeners per episode, like that's still a very engaged audience. And like comparing the two, I always like to make those little switches where it's remember like the individuals and who you're speaking to and if you can make connection.
Absolutely. And the other thing too that a lot of people don't realize, I get a little sassy in my content with this. I'm like, I swear to you guys, if you start another video with get ready with me to do X, Y, and Z, that works for influencers because they've built their brand on it. They might be a beauty influencer. They might be a fashion influencer. The minute a small business owner does that, get ready with me, and then you guys wonder why it's not performing, I'm like, it doesn't feel natural and native to you. So it's like taking tips from these bigger influencers and how they structure their content it could work for you, but it might not work for you. And that's okay too. Or a lot of these influencers will build their following because they're giving influencer tips. And I'm like, just because they're giving tips about influencing and that's how their account is growing doesn't mean that those same tips are going to work for your interior design business. Like that, it's two very vastly different industries with different goals and different marketing objectives. So if you try these tips, marketing is all an experiment. Let's be honest. Content creation is all an experiment. So things might pop off for you, but don't expect like they have this secret key and that key doesn't seem to work for you. It doesn't mean you're trying to force it into the wrong lock, that kind of thing. So just keep that in mind as we're going through this, that it's okay to try these things, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's all good.
Yeah, it is all good. I love it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how to approach a topic from different angles, because I know this is something that you love. So how do we take one kind of overarching topic and break it into different angles and different posts and all that stuff?
So the first way that I actually like to approach this and coach people through, and it seems to be the thing that clicks the most. Let's take a content idea. For me, it could be something like, the one that always works really well for me is when I'm like, here are 3 different social media scheduling tools. That is always a content idea that performs well for me. How can I take that idea and break it down? Number 1, I could create a video series that could go on TikTok, could go on Reels, breaking down each of the 3 different types. That's 3 videos right there. I could take that same idea and do B-roll with text on screen and just list them and maybe talk about it in the caption. I could also take that and turn it into a carousel. Again, breaking it each one on a different slide. Or I can do a talking head and tell all 3 in one video. I just created probably 5 to 6 pieces of content right there off that one idea, and it's the same information. We're just breaking it down in different ways. And you can do that with your ideas too. Listicles are always the easiest one to demonstrate in this way, but even your storytelling. Let's say you had a great client result from the course that they took from you. Can we spin that testimonial? If they gave you a written testimonial, let's do a graphic, or maybe you telling the story as a voiceover with B-roll on the screen. There's so many different ways that we can break it down just from one idea.
Yes. Oh, and I love that too, just thinking about the different formats. I myself like to think about the different formats and then also like the different buckets where it's that overarching theme and then thinking testimonial, tip, myth busting or misconceptions, a personal story or anecdote, all these different ways that we can start splitting our content into different pieces. And yeah, and pretty soon you're like, holy
now I have
crap,
too much.
I have tons.
Exactly. And I love that you said that, because let's go back to my example of the scheduling tools. Scheduling tools is my overarching topic. I can do a storytelling post of like how this scheduling tool saved me 6 hours a week. I could then give tips and tricks and tutorials behind the scenes of how to use that scheduling tool. And then I could do another one where it's like just an infographic of all the different posts I posted out that week using that scheduling tool. But you can see, I love that you mentioned that, because I'm like, we can break that down even further. You can take that overarching topic and really hit home with where people need to hear that information.
Yes, I love that. Let's talk about some tools maybe that you have been loving to use, because that's always super interesting. So yeah, what tools do you use every day and what do you love?
So I just got back from Canva Create and I was a creator for the event and I had a blast. And let me tell you what, you guys, this is podcast exclusive. I haven't mentioned this to anybody yet. I think I'm going to be moving away from Airtable and putting everything into Canva because of these new updates. So Canva is my go-to. I'm creating in there every single day, and Descript is another one that I use for video editing, podcasting, things like that. And those are my 2 main tools that I use every single day. And again, I'm currently in Airtable to organize the chaos, but I've also noticed that Airtable seems to overwhelm people quite a bit. And because it's my industry, I've been in it for years and years, but it's also getting very expensive. So I'm not going to lie about that. I'm like, I have to be moving away from Airtable, but just using the tools. This is how I always coach people. Use the tools that you use every single day. Just because I recommend one to you, I recommend Descript. Maybe you love editing videos on your phone in CapCut and you sometimes use the desktop one. Don't switch just because I told you to, but if you're searching for one, try out one of the ones I recommend. But those are the things that I'm using day in and day out, and that's what makes content creation easy. I've tried to force Notion so many times. I cannot be a Notion girly. So if it works best for you to have everything in Canva, by all means do it. I'm researching that right now, trying to figure all that out. But that's my approach to tech. And I have an app for everything. So if you guys have questions about it, you guys can hit me up on Instagram and I will give you all the app recommendation. But yeah, that's where I'm at with my apps.
Okay, so I used to be an Airtable person myself, and I did move away from it because it was getting expensive. And so I actually did move from Airtable to Notion, which it took me a hot second for sure, because I feel you. But I did want to just mention that too, because it does translate from Airtable to Notion. It feels awkward at first, but I finally made it click for me and stuff. But I've been loving using Notion too, because they do have this AI feature where you can auto-populate tables and stuff. So it's really cool because like I've been using ChatGPT to brainstorm ideas, and you can turn it into a table format. You can just paste it into the table. There's been some like reels going around Instagram. And then you can have Notion's AI just auto-populate like captions or like visual suggestions or something like that, which is really cool. I want to hear about Canva's exciting new features. What are you most excited about?
Yes. So I think it's just going to be the way the workspace they redesigned it is really ideal for me. And they have done so much with documents. And in the way that I approach content repurposing, I take a long form piece of content, break it down into smaller pieces. That's why I've always used Airtable. It kept everything very organized. But the way that they've updated documents, I am now, and their new AI tools are so good. Just the way that they've approached AI is pretty incredible. I'll be able to create all of my content within one folder in Canva. I can do my Instagram posts, I can do my Pinterest pins, and then inside that document, I can have my captions and my tags and things like that. So it's just the way that they've optimized things, and they're starting to really enhance their video editing tools. I will still be with Descript. Canva isn't fully there to replace a higher end editing tool, but there are some really good things, especially if you're only creating some reels here and there. You can dump them in Canva and create some crazy cool videos. There are animations and things like that. So Canva is really becoming a powerhouse when it comes to content creation. And again, I am all about the simplification of things, and I'm the app queen. And even I get sick of all these apps all the time, and they don't always talk to each other. And the cool thing about Canva, at least what they announced at Canva Create, they've updated a lot of their apps. So it interconnects with the software that you're using. So I can go and create all this content in Canva and immediately send it to Later. I don't have to download and upload, and Later is my scheduling tool. So it just sends it over to Later. And I'm like, that is so good. I want these apps to start talking together. And that's why I'm starting to think about moving to Canva for everything, because Airtable, if you want it to talk to other apps, it's going to cost you another $50 a month or something. I'm like, oh my God, it's so I already pay $200 a month to use Airtable. And I'm like, I can't, this is getting very expensive.
I know. It's like it really is something to pay attention to. I mean, with our Authentic AI sister podcast, I've just been in all of the freaking AI apps and tools and stuff. I've had to set boundaries with myself. But also I do think it's something to say, you really do need to start paying attention to your monthly subscriptions and like comparing pricing. And so many of these tools can pretty much do the same thing. You know, so it's like, what's important to you and how can we eliminate some of those extra costs? I'm so excited for Descript's new interface because it's going to allow us to eliminate like Opus Clip as the short form clip software I was using. Descript is so awesome for the long form editing, and now they made it super easy to do clips, like generate good clips from a podcast episode or something like that. It's gonna be so great. I can't wait to look into Canva's new like updates and stuff more. I haven't been able to really yet.
There's a lot. There's definitely a lot. And then there's like just really fun, like I'm exploring whiteboards more. I literally just put out a tutorial how to do your content pillars using Canva whiteboards. Like some of these tools are just really going to change the way that we work and approach content. I'm like, at this point, I think I can build my entire business in Canva. Get rid of like Google Drive and all these other things. Get rid of all of it. Get rid of all the subscriptions.
Yeah. I mean, and even definitely Canva's website stuff. I mean, and I haven't played around with it for a while. Let's just say that. But it's definitely not going to replace your like, especially for blogs and stuff like that.
Correct.
But I mean, it's pretty easy. It's pretty quick if you just need a landing page. And I could see them pretty easily updating it in the future to make it easy for your website too.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I can speak to that because last year around Black Friday, I did a Black Friday sale for a workshop, a live workshop. And I'm like, I do not have time to create this in Squarespace. Squarespace is my preferred website tool. I just put up a landing page, a quick little sales page in Canva, and it sold everything I needed it to sell for me. I was like, this is perfect.
Oh, I love it. Okay, we could could talk for so long, I'm sure.
Yes.
But, you know, again, boundaries. I keep saying everyone, I'm saying boundaries with my
Yes.
podcast, with my tools, with my business.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your awesome knowledge with us. Can you tell everyone how they can find you and connect with you and find your resources?
Absolutely. So I am Amber Figlow on every single platform. I'm on vast majority of them except for X. I'm not a Twitter girly. That is just not me. So you guys can connect with me on the platform of your choosing. I will say I am the most responsive on Instagram, so you guys can hit me up in the Instagram DMs. And other than that, you guys can head to amberfiglow.com. I do have currently, again, I might be moving away from Airtable, but right now I do have a free content planner tool. Even if you decide you don't love Airtable, you can take the concepts and really use it in your Notion, in your Trello, things like that. So you guys can grab that. Other than that, yeah, just hit me up on Instagram if you have any questions about anything.
Thank you so much, Amber. I've so enjoyed this.
Yes.